Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. Welcome to episode 122 of the Fully In It podcast. I just got home from the gym. My kids are watching a movie and Kirk is cooking dinner, and I wanted to take this time to just connect with you. How are you doing? How has the summer been for you? Has it been restful, restorative? Have you been able to connect more with your family? Or has it been for you how it has been for many of my clients, which is they're feeling a little burnt out by summer? Having the kids home, having vacations, and having to coordinate for camps and all of the things that come with family life. And it makes me think back to when I was a kid and, didn't summer feel like so slow? My kids will ask me like, Mom, what did you do in the summertime? And when I reflect back, we spent the entire day outside playing, running between neighbors' houses, but it was just, not to sound like an old person, but it was just a different time period, wasn't it? We were able to do that. So this episode is all about, one, what my summer experience has been like. I'm pulling back the layers for you because I want to give you perspective on what it is like for me as the CEO of a business, but also as a mom of 3. And I discovered some pretty powerful lessons, especially in the last few weeks, about what it is like to be launching my signature offer, my Expand Mentoring membership during the summertime as a mama of 3. So in this episode, what we are going to do is we are going to dig into what has been happening with my launch, my history with launching, my experiences that I have learned from being in business for 5 years now, which is crazy. I have done so many launches at this point, and yet, this, if you are an entrepreneur, if you happen to have a business model where you are live launching, you know that it is always an opportunity to collect data and to learn and grow in how you want to lead yourself when it comes to your launches. So historically, when I launch for let's say group programs or masterminds, historically my launches have been around maybe 6 weeks. And, industry standard says around maybe 3 to 4 weeks. But what I find is that this is really dependent on your business model and also your audience. My audience is made up of moms. And I have found over time that my people need more time to decide. They are thinking through it very carefully and intentionally, even if they know that this is 100% the program for them. They still need that time to really sit with it, maybe to discuss it with their partner before they say yes. And so I have launched, primarily mom coaching containers. I have launched business coaching containers and then ones that are a hybrid of the two. And it's so funny because every launch I will have one or two people who sign up like right away. They are those people that they have been watching me. They are following all of my stuff on social media. They've already gone through the necessary internal work to be a yes. And so when I open doors, they're like, heck yeah, I am in. And they sign up right away. And then there's typically a down period in the middle of my launch where I am a normal human being and I start to go, oh my gosh, is anyone else going to sign up? Is this it? And then I have to remind myself, Kate, you've been through this so many times, and the human brain likes to forget the pattern of how things go. Because inevitably, in weeks 5 or 6, or maybe even 7, if I've decided to extend out the launch, I will get another influx of signups. And the cool thing I have discovered about the way my launches run, as well as the way that my people make decisions, is that I don't really do any returns or have people ghost on their payments. Is this something that you have seen happen either in your business or in someone else's? I have a few coach friends that this is common for them. Every single month they are chasing down payments, and they have people who ask for their money back. And in 5 years of business, I have processed one return, and it was a mutual decision that this person was not right for the container. And we both agreed that it made the most sense for her to not be in it. So I appreciate that, because even though my process is slower, it is intentional. It is focused on inviting in the right people who are going to not only benefit from being in that space, but also they're going to see those results. So all of this to say, I did something really funny in this expand launch. I decided that I was going to make it only 10 days long. And this is incredibly out of context for my business and for my people. When I launched Expand this past April, so just a few months ago, my launch was 13 days long. However, I spent about the 6 weeks prior doing kind of like a soft pre-launch. So if you are new to launching, this just essentially means that there is a period of time where you are building awareness, product awareness. You are also building problem awareness. So you're helping your people to see like, these are the things that they may be struggling with. And then also how your product is the solution. And so that way, ideally, your audience is really hot to buy from you by the time you actually open doors. So that's what I did. Like February, March, I was warming up my audience. I was really on point with my messaging. And then I opened doors for 13 days and I signed 6 women to expand in that period. So it kind of felt like almost like every other day I was getting applications in. I had several of those days that multiple people applied on the same day, and it was really awesome. And not everyone who applied came in. We decided that some people weren't the right fit at that time, so there were 6 women who made it all the way through the application process to joining Expand. Now here's the thing. There were some differences with this launch from other ones that I have done in the past. The big one was that I had ads running behind it. So you may have heard me talk about this, but I had hired a Facebook strategist to help me with this launch. So we had those ads running, although interestingly enough, all of the people who signed up were ones that I had personally connected with prior to the launch beginning. Now, this launch that I'm currently in right now for Expand is 100% organic. So I made the decision that I didn't want to continue doing the ads at this point in my business. It just doesn't really make sense for me, for my business model. It does work for some people, but what I learned about ads is that you have to spend a lot to get the same results that if you're really good at organic marketing, that you can create just through really speaking to your people and connecting with them that way. And that's really how I've built my business, is 100% organic. I know my people, I know what they need and what they want to hear. And so it was a cool experiment to do, but ultimately, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm way better at connecting with my people than Facebook ads. And who knows, maybe at some point in the future, I will decide to come back around to it, but I did not do it for this launch. So coming into this July Expand launch, there were a few things that I did not fully calculate or take into consideration as I began the launch. The first one was that we ran those ads and a ton of new people came on my email list. And that's amazing. However, these people are new, and whenever you bring in new people who haven't been with you for very long, they're what we call a cold or a lukewarm audience. They signed up because I had a free webinar, but they don't really know me from any other business coach for moms, which means you have a lot of work to do to warm them up to your offer. The other thing I didn't really take into consideration is that launching in summertime is a very interesting time to launch because, again, my audience is all moms and they are busy, they're on vacation, they are tapped out from social media. So it's very different from other times of the year where my moms are just more present. They're more involved on social media. They're getting on the app daily. They're actually reading their emails. And so naturally, my engagement hasn't been super low, but it has been a little bit lower over the summer. And just hearing from the women who are already in Expand, they've got a lot going on and they're feeling burnt out. So if that's indicative of my people, that absolutely will impact a launch. But the really big thing that I couldn't have anticipated when I was planning out my launch schedule for 2023 was what would be happening in my own personal life. And oh my gosh, you guys, I posted on Instagram the other day about how I'm extending the Expand launch and that I was going to explain it on this podcast. And I think once you hear all of this, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Kate, this is crazy town, because my life has been insane the last month. And so I'm going to actually fill you guys in because I want you to see that one, my life is not perfect. There are always challenges coming up. I'm still a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner, and I'm navigating and I'm juggling all of that as I'm growing my business. So let's dig into that. Here's the deal of what has been going on. My husband, Kirk, has been in an intensive job search since the first week of May. So essentially the Expand launch ended. We went to Disney World. If you caught my episode on taking 5 days off of social media, that was that time period. And it was that same week that Kirk started his job search. And he's moving into a new industry that's highly, highly competitive. I can't claim to fully understand how this works, but apparently it involves a lot of LinkedIn networking and connecting, and people don't really get jobs from applications, but it's more so who you know. So he's getting on the phone every day, having multiple conversations with people that he's networked with on LinkedIn, and then he's doing this all while working full-time. So even on his days off, which are Mondays and Tuesdays, typically he would have the kids and I would work on those days. Well, he's been really needing that time for his job search, whether that's like meeting with people in person, doing a field day for a job, or doing some kind of job search related prep. It's meant that I have been more on. Like, I've been the primary parent, the main one taking care of all of the home responsibilities so that he could focus on his actual job as well as his job search, which honestly is not that big of a deal because I had a babysitter who was helping me with the kids a couple days a week. So I had these time periods to be hyper focused on my business. You all know I wake up early and I also work on my business then. So I was able to make it work and it was okay. Then my babysitter like ghosted us in June and she just stopped responding, which was like heartbreaking for my kids, but also frustrating for me because I know I'm anticipating I'm going into a launch and I just knew I didn't have the capacity to try to find and hire, like vet, like go through that whole process of hiring a new babysitter in time for the launch. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And here's the thing is that I'm really stubborn. Like, I know most people would be like, oh, I'm just going to like postpone the launch. And I'm like, no, I'm got to keep to my plan because I have my entire year planned out in my business. And of course, this is not what I would necessarily recommend to clients, but I tend to kind of be hard on myself in that way. I'm like, no, we are going to stick to the plan and we are going to figure it out. And then June 30th, my husband went to the ER, to the emergency room. So, I am in that like final prep push for the launch, getting ready for it and feeling pretty good. And then he had an interview that Friday, super exciting, but also like, again, if you're married, right? Like you understand, you feel the pressure, you feel that like stress and just all of that. Like if your partner is in a job hunt, so I was like really feeling that with him. So he had the interview and then he went to work. And then later when he was coming home, he came home, no big deal. He comes into the house and, I had like been dozing on the couch and he was like, let's get ready for bed, Kate. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like half asleep and we go in the bedroom, we lay down to go to sleep and we're only laying down for like a couple of minutes. And he goes, Kate, I'm like itching really bad. I was like, what? That's weird. I'm like half asleep. I'm not really thinking anything of it. He's like, Kate, it is like really, really bad. I go, well, turn on the light and like look and see what's going on. So he turns on the bathroom light and he is broken out in hives. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? He goes, can you grab some Benadryl? I'm like, yes. So I run to the cabinet where we keep all of like our supplements and like medicine for these kind of situations. And then as soon as I open the cabinet, I remember I had given the last dose of Benadryl to one of the kids like 2 weeks prior and I hadn't replaced it yet. So note to self, don't be like me. Make sure you replace those things like immediately. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Kirk, we're out of Benadryl. And he's like, okay, like I need something like this getting really, really bad. I go, okay, let me run across the hall. And we happen to have a neurosurgeon lives across the hall from us. He's a doctor. I'm like, surely he's got Benadryl. So I run across, I'm like pounding on his door. He's not answering. I come back in. Kirk's, again, he's got hives all over his face, his skin. He's like, you have to call 911. I'm like, what? Like in my mind, I just don't think it I was like half asleep. So like it wasn't registering how serious this was. So I go to pick up my phone and I look at the screen and it immediately dies. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, like it just kept getting worse. So I grab Kirk's phone. I'm on 911 with the emergency responder. She's giving me these instructions. She's like, if he like goes unconscious, just like roll him on his side, try to keep him awake. I'm like, are you kidding me? Kids are all asleep in their beds. So we live on the second floor. We go down to like, outside so that we could see the ambulance when it comes up. And she's like, we're really close. They're going to be there in just a few minutes. And he's having trouble breathing and struggling to stay conscious. And I'm like, this is my worst nightmare. And it like happened so fast that like I couldn't even comprehend what was happening. So like miracles of miracles, I look around the corner in the parking lot and I see our neighbor who lives above us, and she's a mama of 4 and we are friends. And I see her sitting in the car and must have just come home from something. And I run over to her and I like pound on the window and I'm like, I need your help. Because I could hear the ambulance coming, but I could see they were coming around like the backside of our building. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to waste time. They're going to go in the wrong entrance. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, you have to go over to Kirk. Don't leave him alone. So she runs over there, like, bless her heart, like jumps right into this situation. And I like sprint around the corner toward the ambulance, like flag them down, have them come around. And they immediately get him, put him on a stretcher, put him in the ambulance. And I just like broke down, like just started sobbing in my neighbor's arms because it was so much. Like it was so much, like so fast. And she was such an angel. And she was like, I will go up to your apartment and I will stay with your kids so you can go to the emergency room. I was like, thank you so, so much. So she went up and like just sat on the couch and hung out in there while they slept. And then I jumped in the car and I was able to like, kind of get behind the ambulance and follow it to the hospital. And they had to give Kirk like, 3 shots of epinephrine and like all these things. They were trying to figure out what was wrong. They didn't know. They couldn't figure out what would cause that severe of a reaction. But when I talked to them, they were like, thank goodness you called 911 right away. They were like, this is one of the most severe reactions we've seen in quite a while. And so he was there overnight. I stayed for a few hours till about like maybe 2 or 3 a.m. And then I went home and relieved my neighbor, sent her home, slept on the couch for like 2 hours. And then he was ready to be picked up at like 5 a.m., 5 or 5:30 a.m. So I like woke the kids up, threw them in the car, and they were, of course, like, they were scared and shocked and like, what is happening? So we went and picked up Kirk. We went immediately to the pharmacy and filled a prescription for EpiPens because, again, they couldn't figure out what it was. And I have my hunch, but I'm not going to say it on a podcast. You can message me if you're like really curious and you want to know. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what caused it. But like I said, I'm not going to say it on the podcast. I will just leave it at that. So we got him, we came home, and this was when I started to notice. So this was July 1st. Right? So like he went in June 30th and the next day is July 1st. And I just noticed I am starting to feel very depleted. And then on July 4th, we honored the 1-year anniversary of my father-in-law passing away. And that was just so much on top of, just a couple days later, on top of the whole emergency room scare. I'm supporting the kids with their grief. All of this sadness is coming up. And so I'm trying to like emotionally hold my kids. I'm emotionally holding my clients. I'm emotionally holding my husband. And I'm a pretty strong person. So if you've coached with me or you know me personally, I can hold a lot, but I was starting to just feel the weight of all of it. However, I had been selling for the last few weeks into my free event, the Party of the Year, which so excited about it. Like that was like the highlight of everything that was happening in my personal life, was knowing I was going to get to be at that free event for 4 days in a row with my community, connecting with you all, like getting to love on you. For me, that is such a gift, and it feels like play. It doesn't feel like work, right? So I'm looking forward to that, but also like that was 6 days later. So do you see like how much of this was happening so close together? So Party of the Year was July 10th through 13th, and I had just shy of 50 people sign up, which is incredibly good for me. I was so proud of that. And we had about 35 to 40% of the people who signed up showed up live every day, which is like huge because again, summertime and moms and the women were engaged and we were having incredible conversation and breakthroughs. And I'm telling you, if you didn't participate, message me, send me a DM on Instagram at Happier in Motherhood, and I will just send you the private YouTube playlist. I'm telling you, like, you gotta watch this and be part of it because so many shifts were made for the women who participated. And I felt like I carried myself so well that week. Like, I got up early, I did my morning routine, I had my mindset was on point. I felt so good and so grateful for this business, for all of you, for getting to even be in this position of influence, which I yeah, like that's a weird word to use, but I hope you know what I mean. Like, I don't take it lightly that I get to teach and serve so many women from around the world. Like, this is a big freaking deal to me. So I felt so good about it. And I like took the kids to the pool every morning. We got our outdoor time, our sunshine, and some play. And then the calls were every day at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I just like put on a movie for the kids. Like I tuckered them out. Then I put on a movie because again, remember, no babysitter. And the week I was doing this, Kirk had a field day with one of the medical companies he was interviewing with, which means like he left at like 6 a.m. because he went in on a surgery. And then he went and like visited some clinics with the guy. And so like I was solo, doing all of this by myself. And I was able to, I was holding the energy of the week. And it felt incredible until I got to the end of the week, which was exactly when I was getting ready to open doors for Expand. And I felt my nervous system crashing. And so we opened the cart for Early Bird on the 13th, and then full doors open was on July 15th. And I was like in it until I wasn't. And then like last week, so like the first full week of the launch, I spent 2 out of the 5 days in bed, which is not my norm. But I think like now I'm like reflecting and I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, it all caught up with me. All of it, the not having a babysitter and like the mental strain of like, okay, how am I going to juggle all of this, as well as the output of supporting all of these women day after day on these group coaching calls, supporting my husband in his job search, going through the fear of like, what if he dies? He went to the emergency room. Like, it seriously brought up so many fears for me. It was just a lot happening. And so last week, I was like, what is going on with me? Like, why am I so tired? Like, why is it such a challenge for me to show up in the way I want to show up? And I was feeling a lot of pressure around the launch. So I talked to my own coach about it. And she reminded me that my last launch, the one in April, my mom had been in town for 2 weeks. I also had a babysitter who was showing up twice a week. And I had a strategist who scheduled and planned out my entire launch for me. And this time it was entirely on my shoulders, and I couldn't even depend on my partner to help out like with house stuff and groceries and meals and all. Like, all of that was on me too. That was last Friday when she pointed that out to me, and it was like, oh, okay. Okay, I see now what is happening here. I see now why I feel so incredibly fatigued and burnt out in this launch because, in my mind, I'm like, I love Expand. I love it. I think it is the most valuable container for a mom entrepreneur to join that is out there in the industry. I truly believe it is the best thing out there. And especially the value that you get for the price is unheard of. And it is a mastermind experience at a membership investment like nobody else is doing it how I do it. So believe me, I felt so confident around Expand, but my energy wasn't there. And when you're launching, you kind of have to have both, right? You have to have the belief in what it is that you're selling. And I was rock solid on that. But the key piece that I was missing was I felt so unsupported. And as mom entrepreneurs, we need more support than the typical entrepreneur because we hold up everybody. And it is folly to think I can just do it on my own. I don't need help. I don't need anybody. Because if we don't have people holding us up, how can we realistically expect to do that for other people, right? It makes a lot of sense. And so when I realized that last Friday, I did for me exactly what I would do for one of my clients. I gave myself just the biggest hug and so much compassion, right? And it looks like this. It's like, oh, of course you're exhausted and depleted, Kate. Of course you are. Look at everything you're holding so beautifully for everyone. You've shown up so well for the people you love, but now you have gone through all of your resources and it's time to take care of you. And it's okay to take care of you. So I comforted myself in that way. And if you've ever coached with me, I will coach you that way. That's the thing is I would never expect one of my clients to hold a launch if they were going through this much upheaval in their personal life. I'd be like, hey, let's rethink this. Let's expand your launch. Let's postpone it. Let's get creative of how we can do it in a way that works with your energy. But for whatever reason, I wasn't doing that for myself. So once I had that realization, I just stopped selling into Expand. I stopped talking about it on social media. I gave myself permission to just turn my brain off. And again, my original plan was to close doors on July 23rd, which was my 16th wedding anniversary to my husband. We had such a good day, in case you're wondering. It was so good. I love my husband so much and I love my family, and it's just amazing to get to celebrate what we've created together as a family over the last 16 years. It's kind of nuts. But I was going to close the doors on July 23rd, and I realized I'm not ready to do that. It's not the right time. I want more space to rest and also be very intentional about inviting you all into Expand and slowing this process down, honoring what I need right now, but also what you all, my community, need too when it comes to making your decisions. So my parents are coming into town tomorrow, or actually when you listen to this episode, they'll be here. And we're going to go to Disney World for a few days. And my plan is just to kind of tap out. I'm creating some content that will be pre-scheduled. And then I'm planning on leaving the doors open to Expand into August. We mamas are carrying so much right now. And then it's going to be back to school time. And it's just a lot, right? So it's why not honor where we are and let this launch, the rest of the launch, be softer? Let it be kind of like an invitation for us to consider like what this could be and what it could create for you and your business, how I want it to go, what I am visualizing, and just seeing this like amazing group of mom entrepreneurs coming together in the perfect timing so that on September 6th, when we have our kickoff call for this, like kind of like this next group that's coming in, we can come together and just like breathe this deep sigh of relief and satisfaction, like, yes, we made it through the summer, and now we get to commit to growing together for an entire year. The thing is that this matters, like this decision I'm making, it feels so powerful because I could have held myself to that deadline and been like, nope, Kate, you made that decision. You better stick to it. It's what you told people you were going to do. But the thing is that we get to change our minds as our life circumstances change. This is called being in integrity with the way that your life is going, and whether that's what your family needs, it's what you need, it's what your people need. You get to give yourself that permission to shift your business as is necessary. And as a coach for mom entrepreneurs, and I'm also a slow living advocate, like I don't rush in any other area of my life. So why push myself like that? I certainly wouldn't expect that of you either. You get to give yourself permission to do business in a way that makes sense for you. It doesn't matter what some coach on the internet has said to you, including me, okay? Like you are the expert and you always get to decide. And what one person's launch model looks like may work for them and it may not work for you. So I want you to always just, when you're like listening to people's podcasts or you're reading their Instagram posts and they're like, this is the foolproof way to launch, remember, it has to work for you, your time, your energy, your capacity, and your family. And your needs and your family needs will always come ahead of launching and business. And now we have to also be careful, right? Because there's always going to be stuff going on with our families. So we could theoretically like always push business off into the future. Like, you know yourself, if you're listening and you're like feeling called out right now, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like, you're like, oh, well, I got to wait for the kids to go back to school. And now I got to wait for, fall break and like, right? We don't want to always be putting things off. So have that self-awareness if that is you. There is always a baseline in your business that you can show up for. And I strongly encourage my clients like to know what their bare minimum is that they can do in their business no matter what is happening in their life, so that they have that consistent daily action and commitment. But here's the thing is that we can't lead others if we are exhausted. And that is why last week I let myself lay in bed for 2 days. I let the women in Expand know I wasn't going to be showing up as much because I had to refill my own cup so I could get to this point where I am right now on the microphone talking to you about my plan for leading my business going forward. So here's what I want you to expect. Doors are going to stay open for Expand into August or until all 10 spots are filled. 2 have already been paid in and these women are coming in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for these 2 women who have already said yes. But I want to give you that space to really own if Expand is for you so that you can, over the next year, right? It's 52 weeks in, you can start creating more profit in your business, but without hustling, sacrificing your family, cutting into family time, and working with the time and the energy you do have available. Because the season of motherhood that you're in it matters. But also, you get to have motherhood and a growing business at the same time. So if you're curious about what this expand thing is all about, you can find all of the details at happierinmotherhood.com/expand-membership. There's also a link in the podcast notes. So if you're like looking at your phone and you have the player open, just look at the notes there. There's going to be a link there that you can click that'll take you directly to Expand. Or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Happier in Motherhood, and we can talk about if it is the right fit for you in this season of your life and business. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for listening to all of this. I wanted to be transparent with you all, and I hope that this encouraged you and gave you the permission to lead yourself and lead your business in the way that only you know that you need to go. Okay, I will see you on the next episode.